In this video, I'm going to show you how to cook 4 different steaks in 4 different barbecues using a few different cooking methods. Now, I've put this video together using 4 of my favorite steak videos, and first up, we've got a reverse seared ribeye in the Weber kettle. So for this video, we're going to be using our 57cm Weber kettle. So we'll start by taking the lid off, and then we'll remove our cooking grate, and then I'm going to get a couple of fire lighters down and light them up. And now I'm going to get a charcoal chimney on top, and then you want to fill that about halfway with some lump charcoal or briquettes. And now we've got about 10 to 15 minutes before they're going to be ready, so we'll use that time to prepare our steak. So here we have our ribeye steak. This is a beautiful 1.2 kilo ribeye steak. Beautiful marbling in there. This is a marble score 2+. So this is just a Scotch fillet bone in. So if you take the bone out and you're just left with this part, that's our Scotch fillet. You've got your spinalis or rib cap there, and then you've got the eye here. So this one doesn't really need any trimming. I reckon there's just a little bit here I'll trim off just because it's dangling off already. And honestly, that's as far as I need to go. And as you can see, this is nice and thick. That's around 1.5 inches to 2 inches in thickness. So a really good size for reverse searing. We're going to get started by just giving this a light coat in some olive oil, which is going to help our rubs stick to the meat. Now, like I said, this is an ideal thickness for reverse searing. If we tried to sear this in the pan, you'd definitely run the risk of burning the outside before the middle's cooked through. And now we've given it a nice light coat in some olive oil. I'm just going to give it a good season in my beef bounce rub. Now typically I'll reverse sear any steak that's over 1 inch or so in thickness. It just allows the steak to come up to temperature nice and slowly and provides a much more even cook as well. And now our steak's all nice and seasoned up. I'm just going to get a probe in there. I'm just going to be using my Inkbird wireless probe. You just want to get that right in the middle in the thickest part of your steak. And now our steak's ready to go. We'll come back once our briquettes are ready. All right, so as you can see, our briquettes are burning nice and red hot now. So what we're going to do is just dump them in at the front of our Weber here. And I'm just going to make sure they're in a nice neat pile. And then for now, we want to make sure our bottom vent is wide open. Then we'll get our lid on, and we want to make sure our top vent is wide open for now as well. And now we'll give our Weber a few minutes to preheat. Now our Weber's had a few minutes to preheat. I'm just going to get a nice little chunk of bourbon barrel oak straight on those briquettes. Then I'll get a drip tray down underneath where our steak's going to sit. I'll get our cooking grate back on. And then we'll get our beautiful steak on the opposite side to where our briquettes are. And then we'll get our lid on. And we want to make sure the top vent is over the opposite side to the fire. Now all that smoke and heat on this side of the Weber is going to be able to pass through and over our steak, and it'll come out our top vent here. So it's been about 5 minutes since I've put that steak on, and I want to be holding this Weber at around 150 Celsius or 300 Fahrenheit. And as you can see on our Inkbird app, our internal temperature is 8 degrees Celsius and our ambient is 145 degrees Celsius. And that ambient temperature is still slowly climbing. So what I want to do to stabilize that off is I'm just going to shut that bottom vent down and I'm just going to leave it a crack open. Then I'll give our Weber another 10 minutes just to stabilize off and see where it sits at. And if I need to increase my temperature, I'm just going to open that bottom vent up a little bit. If I need to decrease, then I'll just shut it down a little bit more. But I'm not going to stress about it too much. If it's around 150 Celsius, I'm going to be happy. And then all I'm going to do after that is just let our steak go until it reaches an internal temperature of around 52 degrees Celsius or 125 Fahrenheit. I reckon it's going to take around 45 minutes to get there. I'm going to flip our steak halfway through the smoking stage just to ensure it cooks nice and evenly. So for now, we're going to let our steak smoke away and we'll come back once we're a bit further into this cook. Right, and after about 25 minutes, we're about halfway through the cook. As you can see, we're at 28 degrees Celsius internal, and our ambient sitting nicely at about 151 degrees Celsius. And you don't have to do this, your steak is going to cook nice and even anyway, but like I said, just to help ensure it cooks nice and even, we're just going to give it a turn halfway through, and then we'll get our lid back on, and then we'll check back in once our steak has hit that 52 degrees Celsius or 125 Fahrenheit. All right, it's been just over 50 minutes and our wireless probe is saying we've hit temperature, but I always like to just cross-reference with an instant read. And that is right around that 52 Celsius. So we can now get our steak out and onto some foil. And I'm just going to take our wireless probe out. And let me know if you guys would be interested in some high heat gloves. I've got these made, custom low and slow basics ones. Really happy with them. So like I said, just let us know in the comments if you'd be interested in something like this so I can add it to the website. But for now, I'm just going to loosely wrap this foil around our steak. We're going to let that have a good rest for around 15 to 20 minutes. And while our steak's resting, I'm just going to take our cooking grate off. I'm just going to spread our briquettes out a little bit, and then I'm just going to get some fresh ones on top. Make sure to pile them up nicely. And then by the time our steaks had a good 15 minutes rest, these briquettes should be nice, red hot, and ready to finish our steak off with a sear. All right, our steak's nice and rested. Our briquettes are burning nicely. Now, because it's nice and thick, I'm just going to sear this top side first. Then after about a minute, we're just going to flip it over. We'll give it about 60 to 90 seconds per side. And I'm just going to keep it moving around so it doesn't stick to the grate and it gets a nice even sear. All right, and this side is looking good. So we'll flip it over and finish it off. All right, and once it's all seared off, we can take it off. We'll bring it over to the cutting bench. We can slice it straight up because it doesn't need another rest. We've already rested it. So let's slice it up. Look at that. Absolute perfection. All right, now let's take a slice off so we can have a taste. So tender. Oh, that is unbelievable. Tender, juicy, got a very nice smoke flavor, good crust. That is such a good steak. Next up, I'm going to show you how to direct grill flank steak. We're going to be using another style of kettle barbecue, being the Oklahoma Joe's Blackjack kettle. Now we're going to get started by setting our barbecue up. We're going to be using our kettle, so we're going to open our lid, take our cooking grate off. We'll also take out our charcoal baskets for now, and then I'm just going to get a couple of firelighters going. Then I'll get my charcoal chimney on top. Then you want to fill that up with lump charcoal or briquettes. Now with our briquettes, or if you're using lump charcoal, it's going to be the same. You just want to get that to a stage where they are ashed over and red hot. That's going to take around 10 to 15 minutes. So while that's happening, we are going to trim and prepare our flank steak. Now, as you can see, flank steak is on the thinner side, so not really suitable for reverse searing. It's more suitable for direct grilling, which is what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to get started by trimming this up. So we just want to get a nice sharp knife. Any thin sort of layers of fat, I'm happy to leave on, but we just want to get rid of any thicker fat and silver skin. So with a nice sharp knife, I'm just going to work just under the fat or silver skin. And this thin edge, I'm just going to round off as well because that's just going to completely overcook and potentially burn. And don't throw any of those trimmings away. That will make some awesome burger mince. All right, so we've trimmed our flank steak up now. As you can see, this has got a nice even shape. We're going to get a beautiful cook out of this. And with your mince trim, like I said, that will make some really good burger mince. Make sure you're working with around 80% lean meat to 20% fat. I think that's a really good ratio for burger mince. For now, we're going to get it seasoned up. You can use any of your favorite steak rubs, but I'm going to be using some garlic galls and beef bounce. So I'm just going to go down with garlic galls first, as that's the finer rub, and then we'll top it off with beef bounce. And if you watch my videos, you're probably shocked that I'm using something other than steak shooter and beef bounce when I'm cooking beef. I thought I'd change it up, but honestly, that steak shooter and beef bounce combo, you've got to try it. Don't forget, all of our rubs are available on our website. I'll put a link in the description so you can check them out. But now our flank steak is all seasoned up. I'm just going to make sure we mop up any rub we've spilt on the cutting board, and then this is going to be good to go once those briquettes are ready. All right, now our briquettes are ready. We'll take our charcoal chimney out. We're going to get our charcoal baskets in, but we're going to have them together in the center of that charcoal grate, and then we're going to fill our charcoal up with these briquettes. And then we just want to make sure they are nice and evenly spread out across the two baskets. And then we'll give our cooking grate a nice light spray in oil. Then we'll get our cooking grate back on, and then we'll get our steak on. Now we can get our steak on straight away. You don't need to let your cooking grate heat up. We want the actual heat from those briquettes to cook the steak and not the grate itself. And then I'm just going to move our steak around every 20 seconds or so to help give us a nice even sear. And then I'm just going to flip this every minute. That's going to give us a nice even cook until we reach an internal temperature of around 125 Fahrenheit or 52 degrees Celsius. We're only just over 3 minutes into this cook, and you can see our steak's got some awesome color already. Seriously, have a look at that. That color is absolutely incredible. This is coming along really nice. Right, and after about an 11-minute cook, the steak has hit temperature. So we're going to get it off and onto a cake rack, which is on top of a tray. That's just going to help preserve that beautiful crust we've built up on that steak. Now, while our steak is resting, we're just going to make a quick, easy, but super tasty taco sauce. So right here, I've got 1 brown onion. I'm just going to use half of this. Just going to cut both ends off and just peel that. And then I've got 3 green jalapenos. I'm just going to chop the tops off them. And if you don't want it as spicy, you can cut them in half, scrape the seeds out, but I'm just going to leave them in. Now I'm just going to get a nice char on our onion and jalapenos. While that's happening in our little food processor, I'm going to get 3 cloves of peeled garlic, a small handful of coriander leaves, and then I'm just going to squeeze in the juice of 2 limes. Then we can add a good pinch of salt, and then once your jalapenos and onion have got a nice char on them, you can add those in as well. Then we'll get our lid on and blitz it up. And then you can have a taste and adjust it to your liking. And then I'll toast some flour tortillas, and now we can slice our beautiful flank steak across the grain. Now that looks absolutely perfect. Now I'm just going to slice some nice thin strips. Then we've got our tortillas here. We'll get some of that beautiful green sauce down. We'll get a couple of strips of steak on each, crumble over some feta cheese, and then I'm just going to top it with some roughly chopped coriander leaves. And that is simple, but it's going to be absolutely delicious. That sauce has got some kick to it, but God, that is good. And seriously, that steak, so tender. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to reverse sear a T-bone steak, but we're going to do it quite different to how we reverse seared the ribeye. All right, so we're going to be using our drum smoker for this cook. We're going to get started by opening it up, taking our cooking grate off, then we'll remove our heat deflector, and then we're going to get some lump charcoal in there. Now, it's not going to be a long cook. It's only one steak, so that's why I've chosen to just half fill our charcoal basket. And now we can bury a firelighter in there and light it up. All right, so yes, this is a T-bone. I know it's got a few different names depending on where you are in the world, but in Australia, we call this a T-bone. And all I'm going to do is trim a tiny bit of fat off. Maybe a tiny bit around here. This honestly doesn't need much. And for those who don't know, the T-bone is made up of 2 parts. So this side here, this side of the bone, there is a bone running down there which you can't really see too well. This is the sirloin or porterhouse, and then you've got the eye filler over here. So I'm still surprised at how many people don't know that, so I just wanted to point that out while we're here. But for now, I'm happy with how that's trimmed. So what we can do now is just coat it lightly in a little bit of yellow mustard, which is just going to help our rubs stick to the meat. And then salt and pepper always does the trick on a steak. But I like using my beef bounce, so I'm just going to give this T-bone a nice light coverage in that. All right, now that is ready to go once our barbecue's ready. All right, and after about 10 minutes, our charcoal's caught light and is burning nicely. So now we can shut our lid and make sure both of our vents are wide open, and we'll let our barbecue preheat to around 250 Fahrenheit or 120 Celsius. All right, now our smoke is up to temperature. We're going to open it up. I'm going to be hanging this T-bone for something different today, so I'm just going to get a little rail in here, slot it in just like so, and then we've got our steak. I'm just going to get the hook in just on that sirloin side, right on the bone there, just like so, and then we're going to hang that up, and we just want to kind of position it so we don't want it directly over the fire because we don't want any of it to burn or overcook. I'd like it to hang probably something like that. And I want that sirloin side to be facing the fire because that eye fillet is a lot smaller. It's much less dense, so it's going to cook faster. So the trick with the T-bone is you want to be trying to make sure both sides are cooking nice and even. And positioning our T-bone like this is definitely going to help it cook nice and even. So now that's in position, we'll shut our lid and let that start cooking away. All right, so just meat and charcoal for this cook. Super simple, but if you wanted to get some smoking wood on that fire, you absolutely can. And if you don't have a drum smoker to hang your T-bone in and you still wanted to learn about the reverse sear method, you can absolutely follow along to the temperature guides in this video. You can use another style of barbecue, you can do it in your oven, and you can reverse sear a steak at home by following this video as well. So this steak being around 1 kilo and 1.5 inches thick, I reckon it's going to take around an hour to get to our target internal temperature, which for this cook is going to be around 49 degrees Celsius or 120 Fahrenheit. And like I said, for this cook, we're going to be holding it around 120 Celsius or 250 Fahrenheit. And if I want to increase temperature, I'm just going to open the intake vent up. If I want to decrease temperature, I'll just shut it down a little bit. These drums are super easy when it comes to fire management, but for now, we're going to let this cook away and we'll check back in once we're a bit further into the cook. All right, we're only about 20 minutes into this steak cook, but I want to make a topping for this steak. Now I'm going to be combining 2 of my favorite toppings, which is chimichurri and cowboy butter, to make a cowboy chimichurri butter. So I've got 150 grams of butter in our small pot there. To that, I'm going to add 1 finely diced red chili, around 3 tablespoons of finely chopped parsley. Then we're going to crush in around 7 cloves of garlic, a tablespoon of red wine vinegar, the juice of half a lemon, and that's kind of our main chimichurri ingredients done. So now we're going to add a teaspoon of finely chopped chives, teaspoon of finely chopped thyme, 1 small finely diced shallot, a tablespoon of horseradish cream, and 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. Then to that you can add some paprika and chili powder, but instead of that I'm just going to use some of my steak shooter spicy rub. Go around a tablespoon worth, and then we're just going to let that butter melt down. We're going to stir this through, and it's done. All right, so this butter's been slowly melting down for around 20 minutes now. It's almost there. Just got a little chunk left to melt, but I just want to put it aside for a moment because we're 40 minutes into this cook, and I just want to check on this steak. All right, so I'm going to try and get the thickest part of the sirloin. We are right around temperature actually, 118 Fahrenheit, or around 46-ish degrees Celsius. And then in our rye fillet, we're actually bang on around that 120 Fahrenheit or 49 Celsius. So since our steak is at temperature, we are going to remove that and give it a rest. And then we'll close our lid back up and we'll let our butter continue to melt down. And then coming back to our steak, I've just taken that hook out. And now I just want to loosely cover this with foil, and we're going to let that rest for around 10 to 15 minutes. And then once all your butter's melted and this is heated through, have a taste, which is what I'm going to do now. Wow, that is so good. This is the first time I've ever made it. I just figured I love cowboy butter, I love chimichurri, and why wouldn't they both work together? So this can just stay on top of our smoker until the steak's done. So we'll come back once we're ready to give the steak a sear. All right, so now it's time to sear our steak. I'm just going to get some oil in a cast iron pan, and I'm actually going to go that fat side down first just to get that to render a little bit more. And honestly, you can do this caveman method for the sear. You could use a pan like I'm doing, or you can go direct over charcoal. It's completely up to you. I just personally like the sear that you get from a cast iron pan. All right, then I'm just going to lay it down, and we're going to give it around 60 to 90 seconds per side. I'm also going to get a steak weight on there just to press it down and get a nicer sear. All right, and then a bit over a minute later, we're going to give this a flip. Got some beautiful color on there now. I'll get that steak weight back on, give it another minute or so, and then we'll come back to slice it up. All right, now we've got a beautiful sear on both sides. Take this off and slice it up. All right, and now for my favorite part. Let's cut this up. All right, the eye fillet. It looks wall to wall, medium rare perfection. And then the sirloin side, exactly the same. Right, let's try a piece. All right, so we're just going to dip in that cowboy chimichurri butter. That is unreal. Honestly, I'm a bit speechless. That is so good. You've definitely got to try that. All right, we'll cut a piece from the sirloin side. Tender, juicy, beautiful crust from that sear. Then that chimi cowboy butter just tops it all off. What a combination. And I've saved my favorite steak for last. In this video, I'm going to show you how to cook hanger steak. So this is an open fire grill, and I've already gone through the seasoning process. Here we've got 2 cooking grates. These are adjustable height and they can swing away as well. Along here we've got our charcoal grate. Underneath that we've got a drawer that you can just brush all your leftover charcoal into to make cleanup nice and easy. I'll put a link for this grill down in the video description, and that'll take you to our website where you can view all the specifications for this one. But for now, I'm just going to get a couple of firelighters down, we'll light them up, we'll get our charcoal chimney on top, then you want to fill that with lump charcoal or briquettes. Now we've got about 10 to 15 minutes before those briquettes are going to be ready, so we're going to use that time to prepare our steak. Now this right here is a hanger steak. This is my favourite steak. Let us know what your favourite steak is in the comments below, but for now we're going to get this trimmed up. So with the hanger steak, you've got this piece of gristle that runs through the middle. I like to knock that out and separate this into 2 different steaks. And as you can see, you've got the grain running this way on this side and the grain's running this way on this side, and we want to be cutting across the grain when this steak is done. And that's why I like to separate it into 2 different steaks, so it's easier to cut across the grain later on. So all I'm going to do is just cut with that gristle And now it's going to be much easier to see where that gristle's running so we can get rid of it. And while we're here, I'm just going to get rid of any thin edges, excess fat, and silver skin too. Now, hanger steak is my favourite steak because it's got such a unique taste and texture. It is super beefy, it's really nice and tender, so if you can ever get hold of some, definitely do it. So our hanger steak's all trimmed up and now it's time to season it. And you know I'm going to hit it with my favourite seasoning, which is a combination of our steak shooter and beef bounce. So I'm just going to go down with some of our steak shooter first. And I'm only cooking for myself today, so I'm just going to cook this one steak here. And then we're going to top it off in our beef bounce. And these steaks here, they're around an inch thick, so they're going to be suitable for reverse searing or grilling like we're doing today. And now we're just going to mop up any seasoning we've got left over on our cutting board. And I can see our briquettes are almost ready. And now our briquettes are ready, we're going to dump them in so they're going to be under this cooking grate. We'll spread them out nice and even. And while this grate isn't over the fire, we're just going to give it a light spray in oil. And we're going to swing it back around over the fire, drop it down to its lowest position, and then we'll get our steak on. And now we're just going to cook our steak hot and fast. We're going to flip it around every minute or so. We're also going to keep it moving around just so we get a nice even crust. And we're going to take this until it reaches an internal temperature of around 125 Fahrenheit or 52 degrees Celsius. All right, and after about 6 minutes, we're starting to get some really nice color on this steak, but I reckon we've still got another 3 or 4 minutes to go on this cook. All right, and after about a 10-minute cook, we are at temperature. So I'm just going to get this steak, move it across to the cool side so that can rest for around 5 to 10 minutes. And now we're going to get started on my favorite steak topping, which is cowboy butter. So in this pot, we've got 150 grams of unsalted butter. We're just going to let that melt down. Now, once your butter's melted down, we're going to add in 1 finely diced small shallot, a tablespoon of finely chopped parsley, a teaspoon of finely chopped chives, a teaspoon of finely chopped thyme, and excuse the neighbor whippersnipping, but now we'll crush in 3 cloves of garlic, and then 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, 1 tablespoon of horseradish cream, the juice of half a lemon, and then a good tablespoon of steak shooter spicy. And then we want to give that a really good mix. And now that's ready. All right, now we can slice our steak. As you can see, the grain is still running this way, so we want to be slicing across it this way. As you can see, a really good cook on that. This is just such a nice tender bit of meat. As you can see, I can literally just pull it apart with my hands. So now let's taste. Oh, that is so good. Even on its own, that is just unbelievable. But let's dip it in that cowboy butter. Honestly, you've got to try that. Hands down my favorite steak topping with my favorite steak. So there's how to cook 4 different steaks using 4 different barbecues using a few different cooking methods. Let us know what your favorite steak is in the comments below. Let us know what your favorite cooking method is too. But for now, that's the end of the video. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below. Make sure you've subscribed to the channel and I'll see you in the next one.